Hello, my name is Helen and I run strength and balance classes for older adults. In this video we're going to do an endurance workout. We're going to work on increasing our aerobic fitness and our stamina. So we're going to look to increase our heart rate a little bit, feel a little bit warmer. Hopefully you've done a warm-up first. So if you haven't, please do that. It just needs to be 2 or 3 minutes marching on the spot, something like that, just as a circulation booster. Let your body know that something's about to happen and get that blood diverted towards the muscles, okay? So I'm going to assume you've done the warm-up. Hopefully you've dressed in comfortable clothes and you've got sturdy and stable shoes on. You need a chair, something of a support option, chair, wall, kitchen counter. We want to do this at most of this workout at a moderate intensity. So that means that you should be able to hold a conversation whilst doing this workout. In the middle bit, we're going to do some interval conditioning. And in that bit, we want to work a little bit harder for 20 seconds. And then we have active recovery for 10 seconds. And in that bit, we're kind of mimicking what you might do in everyday life, such as need to suddenly speed up to catch a bus, or you've been walking quite happily along the flat and then suddenly you come to a hill. Okay, so I'll explain all that as we go along anyway. So let's start. This is going to be seated and standing options. So I'm going to start my timer. So we're just going to start with a minute of marching on the spot. So stand tall for me, chest up, shoulders down. And as we're marching on the spot, I'm going to turn so you can see my feet. I want you coming down on toes, ball of the foot, and then through to the heel, so we get movement through the ankle. We're not coming down on flat feet here. I want to think about that ankle mobility. If you're seated, same thing. Try and be away from the back of the chair and that you're sitting tall. You can have the hands by the side for some extra support if needed. And we're just picking up 1 foot at a time, coming down, toes, ball of foot, through to heel. Lovely. Keep going for me. You can have behind the chair if you need a little bit more support while standing, outside, out to the side of the chair. Or if you're okay, you can just march on the spot. You can even bring the arms in, making sure those arms are moving from the shoulder. Lovely. Moving on to our side taps. So picking up that foot and tapping that toe down out front, a little bit of a diagonal. So if you imagine 12 o'clock down the middle, you're tapping out to 11 and 1 o'clock. Keeping those knees a little bit soft, picking the foot up and then tapping the toes down. If you're seated, same thing. Sit tall, away from the back of the chair if you can, and just tapping those toes down one at a time. As you can see, I'm not stretching out. It is just a little bit of a movement. Keep going for me. If you're standing and you're finding this isn't actually doing anything, you can add that bicep curl. But don't forget, we are going for moderate intensity. So you should still be able to have a conversation during this. Lovely. Okay, just come back for your march for me. Add the arms if you want, swinging the arm from the shoulder, making sure that you're standing tall. Again, make sure those feet are being placed properly down, toes, ball of foot, heel. And you can use those arms while seated as well. Keeping going for me. Lovely, and we're going to change to our side step. So we're leading with the side of the foot, concentrating on the muscles in the side of our thighs here. Very useful if you want to get out of the car. This is not muscle strength though, this is endurance. So a nice side step. If you feel a little bit confident that it's okay, you want to make it a little bit more difficult, then you can make that step a little bit larger. If you are seated, keep that side step within your hip width distance. So it's a little bit of a step out either side. I am not reaching out with my ankle. My knee is coming out with or in line with my ankle. Hip width apart. Again, you can have the hands down for a little bit of extra support if you want. Keep going for me. That side step. Behind the chair if you need that extra support. Lovely, and back to that march for me. Up to you how you're feeling now. You can use this as a bit of active recovery. If you're starting to feel a little bit too out of breath, then just keep this nice and gentle. Otherwise you can continue with your arms, same seated. If you're starting to feel it too much, then just make it a little bit lower, smaller movements. We want to try and get you to that 10 minutes, that endurance. Okay, so standing outside of your chair, we're going to do a little bit of a step forward and then push back and then change legs. Step forward and push back. I'm behind my chair. My chair is never behind me. So I'm stepping forward and then pushing through that heel to bring myself back up to standing. Seated option, front of the chair, step forward, bring that body forward and then push back through the heel. Step forward, body forward, push back. Coming forward from the hips. So keeping that chest up and then pushing back through that heel. Lovely. If I was doing it from the side, that little bit of a step forward and push back. You can see it a little bit better from the side view. Keep going. Don't forget, you can always use the wall as well as a support option. Lovely. A little bit of a rest before we start our interval conditioning. So this bit, high knees. We do want to see that increase in heart rate. It's just for 20 seconds, then you get a 10-second rest. Okay, so this is the bit where we're mimicking that rushing for the bus, the climbing of the hill. So here we go. We want to get those knees up in front. Using that chair if you need it. You can add that arm as well if you want. Seated. Don't want to bring those knees too far up. We don't want to stress the hip flexors. So you could do a little bit quicker with the legs, using the arms as well. Whatever gets that heart rate up for 20 seconds. And then for the first 10 seconds, I want you to either pedal your feet if you're on the chair. This is your rest, or just bringing it down. Lovely, let's go again. 20 seconds, bringing the knees up, using your arms if you do that little bit more intensity. Seated is the same. Don't bring those knees too high up, but you might be able to increase the pace. You've got 5 more seconds. Keep going for me. Lovely. If you're standing, just bring that intensity down. You can even just stand and pedal your feet or sway from side to side. Just keep that movement and then we're going again. 20 seconds, we're over halfway. This is number 3 of 4. 10 seconds to go. If you're seated, a little bit quicker maybe, using those arms. Don't bring the knees up too high though for me. Make sure try and 10 seconds rest. If you're in the seat, you might want to just slump over a little bit. Keep those feet moving. If you're standing, you can pedal or sway or just walk gently. And off. Last time. Last time. Seated. Standing. Or you can use that wall. You are going to get that another rest. Here you go. Lesson 3, 2, 1. Lovely. Bring it down for the rest, and then we're going to go into the side steps. So keep those feet moving in some respect. Lovely. Going back into the side steps. If you're seated, do the side step seated. Again, it's up to you. If you're finding it that you've still got some energy, you can make that a bit of a bigger side step. If you're seated, try and keep it within that hip width for me. Keeping that posture nice and tall. Hands down by the side to use that additional support if necessary. One side to the other. Don't forget you can be behind the chair, out to the side, whatever support option works for you. Keep going. So hopefully during that middle bit, those high knees, as I said, we're working on really increasing that heart rate. That interval conditioning, it makes you able to work a little bit harder for a little bit longer with greater comfort. Okay, and then change back to those diagonal taps in front that we did to start with. If you're seated, again, it doesn't have to be a huge movement, just a little bit out in front and back. Think about 12 o'clock in the middle, you're tapping down to about 11 and 1 in front of you. Hands down by the sides, a little bit of extra support. Here we go. Chair there if you need it. So we should still be in this moderate intensity. You should still be able to have a conversation. But your heart rate is up a little bit. You are feeling warmer, maybe a little bit sweaty. Don't forget, during any of this, if you feel dizzy or faint, have a seat, stop exercising. Lovely. And then we're going to bring it down. Last minute, I want you to bring it down to a march. But just want to start letting that heart rate down, start bringing that heart rate down a bit. So it's a little bit of a march, not picking those knees up very high. Arms down by the side. Same thing if seated. Just bring down the intensity a bit. If you're seated, you can start going to pedaling your feet, so you're just bringing those heels up and down. If you're standing, you can do the same thing. So you can start just pedaling your feet, bringing that heart rate down gradually. Lovely. Keep on going for me. Okay, and bringing it down to a stop. Fantastic. So, I hope you found that useful. Please leave a comment or send an email if you have any questions or you'd like any more information. Otherwise, thank you, and another new one next week. Bye.